What would you do if, on the day meant to celebrate your love, a woman from your partner's past barged in holding proof that your marriage was a lie? Would you break, or would you fight to protect what's yours? I didn't need to think twice. I had been waiting for this evening all week. Our 5th wedding anniversary wasn't just a date on the calendar, it was a quiet victory. 5 years of weathering storms together, of silencing whispers that claimed I wasn't good enough for him, of proving even to myself that love wasn't about how you started, but how you chose each other, day after day. Daniel and I weren't perfect, but when I looked into his eyes every morning, I knew there was nowhere else he wanted to be. The restaurant shimmered in warm golden lights, and the faint melody of a violin drifted through the air. Daniel sat across from me, his suit crisp, his smile easy, the kind of smile that made me forget the world had ever tried to convince me I wasn't worthy of him. He reached for my hand, brushing his thumb across my knuckles. "To us," he said softly. "To us," I whispered back, feeling that familiar heat bloom in my chest. But peace has a strange way of crumbling when you least expect it. Just as the waiter set down the dessert we'd chosen to share, a perfect chocolate souffle, an icy voice sliced through the air. "Well, isn't this cozy?" I turned, and my stomach dropped. Standing there, draped in a glittering red dress like she owned the room, was Claire. His first love. The woman I had only heard about in whispers, seen in faded photographs stuffed deep into old drawers, spoken of only in passing by relatives who loved gossip more than tact. She was the ghost of his past, and suddenly she was flesh and blood, right in front of me. Daniel's jaw clenched, but before he could speak, Claire placed something on the table with deliberate force. A photograph. It was the two of them. Young, carefree, arms entwined, his lips pressed to her temple as though she was his entire world. And across her face was that triumphant smirk that made my stomach twist. "Remember this night, Daniel?" she purred, not even sparing me a glance. "You said forever. I wonder what forever means to you now." The restaurant had grown too quiet. Eyes shifted toward our table, curious, hungry for drama. My pulse hammered, but I forced myself to lean back, my lips curving into a smirk I didn't quite feel. She thought she could shake me with an old memory, a relic from a time before me. She thought she could wave that picture in my face and watch me crumble. But what she didn't know was that I already knew. I had seen that photograph before. I had seen it tucked in Daniel's desk, years ago, when we were still building the fragile foundation of our marriage. He hadn't hidden it because he loved her, he had hidden it because he was ashamed of how badly it had ended. And I remembered the night he told me the story. She was my first love, he'd confessed, his voice heavy. But she taught me what love isn't. She taught me how cruel someone can be when you hand them your heart. I was young and foolish, but I learned. I would never put anyone I loved through that again. Those words had burned into me, sealing something unshakable inside. So when Claire tried to flaunt that picture, I wasn't shocked. I was almost amused. "Beautiful picture," I said, finally lifting my gaze to meet hers. "You look happy." Shame it didn't last. Her eyes narrowed, clearly not expecting my composure. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his hand tightening around mine. Claire leaned closer, her perfume sharp, suffocating. "You think you've won, don't you? Sitting here in your little dress, playing house. You don't know him like I do. You don't know what he promised me." "Oh, I know exactly what he promised you," I replied, my voice steady. "And I know exactly why he broke those promises. Because he realized promises made to the wrong person aren't worth keeping." The room seemed to hold its breath. Daniel finally spoke, his tone cutting. "Claire, stop." His voice carried an authority that turned heads. "Whatever you're trying to do, it won't work. I don't know what you think barging in here will prove, but I'm not that man anymore. I'm not yours." She laughed bitterly. "Not mine, Daniel, we had years together. You think this woman can erase that?" She jabbed a manicured finger toward me, her voice dripping with venom. "She's nothing compared to what we had." I felt a flicker of anger rise inside me, but it wasn't jealousy. It was indignation. I had fought too hard, loved too deeply, to let her reduce me to nothing. "Funny," I said, my smirk widening. "If what you had was so unshakable, why are you here now, desperate for scraps of his attention? Why interrupt our anniversary dinner if you were truly over him? Looks to me like you're the one who can't let go." The color drained from her face, replaced by a flash of fury. Daniel turned to me, his eyes filled with both pride and apology. "You don't have to do this," he murmured. "Yes, I do," I whispered back, because this wasn't just about him. It was about me standing firm, about proving to myself that no ghost from the past could shatter what we'd built. Claire snatched the photo back, her hands trembling now. She leaned in so close I could see the rage burning in her eyes. "One day, you'll see who he really is. Men don't change. You're just the replacement until he finds something shinier." Her words stung, but only for a second. Because the truth was, I had already seen who Daniel really was. I had seen him on his knees beside my hospital bed when I miscarried 2 years into our marriage, whispering prayers through his tears. I had seen him working 2 jobs to support us when our business venture failed. I had seen him sit with my mother for hours, holding her hand as she fought her illness. That wasn't the behavior of a man looking for shinier. That was the behavior of a man who had chosen me, not out of convenience, not out of habit, but out of love. I stood, my voice ringing louder than I expected. "Claire, let me tell you something. You're right about one thing, men don't always change. But sometimes, they grow. They learn. And Daniel grew out of you. That's the truth you can't stomach." The restaurant erupted in whispers. Claire's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, her confidence faltered. Daniel rose beside me, his arm protective around my shoulders. "We're done here, Claire," he said firmly. "Stop living in the past. I have a future, and it isn't with you." We walked out, leaving the photo abandoned on the table. Outside, the night air was cool, sharp against my flushed cheeks. Daniel stopped, turning to me with worry etched across his face. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I never wanted her to." I pressed my fingers against his lips gently. "Don't apologize. She only reminded me of something I already knew." "What's that?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "That she never knew what real love was," I whispered. "And she still doesn't." His eyes softened, and in that moment, under the glow of streetlights, I felt stronger than I ever had before. Claire thought she had come to destroy me. Instead, she had handed me the proof of my own resilience, the evidence that no shadow of the past could eclipse the love I held in the present. And though the night had taken a turn I hadn't expected, one thing became clear: our story was only just beginning, and no one, not even his first love, could rewrite it for us. But here's the twist no one saw coming. While she thought she was exposing me, the truth buried for years came crashing down on her instead, and that was the day I learned not every storm comes to destroy you, some come to reveal who really belongs by your side. The night after Claire's intrusion should have been peaceful. We were supposed to fall asleep wrapped in each other's arms, laughing about our anniversary dinner, making new memories. But instead, the silence in our bedroom carried weight. Daniel lay beside me, restless, his breaths uneven, as though every time he closed his eyes, Claire's face appeared again. I turned on my side, watching him. His profile was shadowed in the dim light, his jaw tense even in sleep. And though I had stood strong at the restaurant, I couldn't ignore the ache gnawing at me now. Her words, "Men don't change, you're just the replacement," echoed in my mind like a cruel refrain. I hated that she still had the power to stir doubt. But then Daniel stirred, his hand instinctively searching for mine in the dark. His grip was tight, desperate, as though he was afraid I might slip away. And in that moment, the doubt faded. Whatever Claire thought she knew, this was my truth: he wanted me here. The next morning, however, the storm escalated. Daniel's phone buzzed nonstop at breakfast. When he finally answered, his face drained of color. Claire hadn't stopped with the restaurant spectacle. She had taken that old photograph, and more, from their past, plastering them online with captions dripping with malice. "The man who promised forever once promised it to me. How many forevers can he have?" By noon, friends were messaging me. Distant relatives called, curious. Our employees at the firm whispered behind closed doors. Claire's game was working. She wasn't just trying to humiliate me, she wanted to smear Daniel's name until he cracked under the weight of it. Daniel slammed his phone down on the table. "She's trying to ruin us." His voice trembled with fury. "She doesn't care who she hurts. She just wants." He broke off, his fists tightening. "I should have cut her off completely years ago." I reached for his hand, steadying him. "She's not going to win." But deep down, I wondered how far she'd go. The following week was chaos. Everywhere we went, it felt like eyes lingered too long, whispers buzzed louder. At the grocery store, two women pointed at me, murmuring. At the firm, an employee slipped and addressed me as the replacement, before stammering out an apology. Claire's poison was spreading. One night, after another exhausting day, Daniel dropped onto the couch, his face buried in his hands. Maybe she's right, he whispered. My heart lurched. Don't you dare say that. He lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot. What if I never really changed? What if I'm still the man who made those promises to her, who fell so easily, who? I knelt in front of him, grabbing his face between my hands. Listen to me. You did change. You grew. You became the man who stayed up 3 nights straight when I was sick, who gave up his dream car to pay for my mother's treatments, who holds me when I break down and never lets go. That is who you are. Not some boy clinging to a woman who didn't deserve you. His lips parted, and for a moment, the torment in his eyes eased. He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could feel his heartbeat pounding against my chest. But the real turning point came unexpectedly. A week later, a letter arrived, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, trembling handwriting scrawled across it. My hands shook as I read. You think Daniel is yours. But he lied to you, just like he lied to me. Ask him about the night he begged me not to leave. Ask him what he promised me behind your back. If you think you know the truth, you're wrong. He's only with you because he lost me. It was unsigned, but I didn't need a signature. The venom, the spite, it was Claire. She wasn't satisfied with public humiliation. Now she wanted to wedge herself between us privately, to plant seeds of distrust that would rot us from the inside. I sat at the dining table, the letter trembling in my hands, when Daniel walked in. His face tightened as soon as he saw it. She won't stop, he muttered, taking it from me. He read it, then dropped it to the table, his jaw hardening. I begged her once, yes. Years ago, before I realized who she really was. I was young, terrified of being alone. But I never went behind your back. I never lied to you. I studied him, searching his eyes. And I saw it, the raw honesty, the regret, the vulnerability. Claire thought she was revealing something damning, but all she had done was remind us of how far Daniel had come. He wasn't the desperate young man in that memory anymore. He was the man who stood before me now, willing to own his past, but never let it define our present. Then she failed, I whispered. Because all she did was prove you're not that man anymore. But Claire's final move was yet to come. The following weekend, we were invited to a charity gala, an event Daniel had helped sponsor. We debated skipping it, worried Claire might try something, but in the end, we decided not to hide. If we stayed home, she'd win. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, laughter filling the air. I clung to Daniel's arm, reminding myself we belonged here. For a while, it almost felt normal. Until a sharp voice echoed behind us. Well, playing the perfect couple for the cameras. I froze. Claire stood there, wine glass in hand, her red dress more dramatic than ever. Photographers lingered nearby, eager for a scene. Claire, don't, Daniel warned. But she only smirked, lifting her glass. Oh, I just want everyone here to know the truth. To know that this little fairy tale of yours is built on lies. Daniel once told me he'd never love anyone the way he loved me. Isn't that right? She turned to the crowd, her voice loud, sharp. Do you really think a man like that changes? The whispers began. I felt every eye on me, waiting for me to crumble. Waiting for me to be the humiliated wife. Instead, I stepped forward. Claire, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. You're right, Daniel once promised you forever. He once believed you were his world. But let me ask you something. If you truly were, why are you still chasing him years later, desperate to tear down the life he built without you? A woman secure in her past doesn't cling to it. She doesn't try to destroy what she can't have. Gasps rippled through the room. Claire's smirk faltered. I lifted my chin. You keep saying men don't change. But maybe it's you who hasn't changed. You're still living in yesterday, while Daniel and I are here, building today, dreaming of tomorrow. That's the difference between us. Silence stretched. Then, to my surprise, applause broke out. It started with one woman near the stage, then spread through the room. Claire's face burned red as she realized the tide had turned. Daniel slipped his arm around me, his eyes shining with pride. He leaned close, whispering, "You were incredible." Claire tried to recover, her voice shaking. "You'll regret this. He'll hurt you, just like he hurt me." "No," Daniel cut in sharply, his voice ringing with finality. "I hurt myself by staying with you longer than I should have. But I'll never hurt her. Not now, not ever." And with that, we walked away, leaving Claire behind as murmurs rose and cameras flashed, not at her, but at us. That night, as Daniel and I sat in the quiet of our living room, I realized something profound. Claire thought she could destroy me with her farce, her pictures, her letters. But all she had done was strip away the illusions, revealing the strength of what Daniel and I truly shared. Not every storm comes to break you. Some storms come to test your roots, to shake you until only what is real remains standing. And as I looked at Daniel, his hand entwined with mine, I knew our love was real. It wasn't built on borrowed promises or fragile illusions. It was built on every battle we had fought, every scar we had carried, every choice we had made to keep choosing each other. Claire had lost because she never understood one thing: the past is only powerful if you let it define you. We didn't, and that was our victory.